He woke up with an oxygen mask strapped to his face, surrounded by a series of seemingly identical men dressed in white, their faces covered by surgeon masks. He made it, one of them said. He's alive. Any evidence of brain damage? Asked another. Altman tried to speak but couldn't get his tongue around the words. One of the doctors put a hand on his shoulder. It was Stevens. He realized he could recognize him by his eyes. Just relax, he said. You're lucky to be alive. He closed his eyes, swallowed, and then a terrible thought hit him. What if this was just another hallucination? He tried to move his arms but couldn't. He opened his eyes, looked desperately around. He confused. He heard one of them say, disoriented. He doesn't know where he is. What was it she had said? You must not give in to the marker. You must not allow it to begin convergence. He had to tell them. The marker, he whispered. Markov leaned close. The marker, he repeated. The marker, said Markov. The marker. He's talking nonsense. Give him another shot. Altman shook his head, or tried. Whether his head moved or not, he couldn't say. Either it didn't move or they ignored him. He watched one of them fill a syringe and prime the needle without being able to do anything about it. He tried to speak, made instead a gurgling, inarticulate cry. It'll be okay, said Stevens, patting his arm. Don't worry, Altman, we're here for you. And then he felt the prick as the needle punctured his flesh. His arm burned a moment and then went numb. The men in white were there for a moment longer, then they slowly blurred and ran together and finally disappeared entirely. When he came consciousness again, the room was empty except for three men, Stevens, Markov, and another man from Markov's inner circle whose name he didn't know. He was as large as Markov but thicker, with a brutal flat face. They stood to one side of the bed, speaking in whispers impossible for Altman to make out. Stevens was the first to notice he was awake. He gestured at him and whispered something. The others two stopped talking in unison. All three moved closer and stared down at him. Altman said, Markov, still alive? You seem to lead a charmed life. Altman started to respond, but Markov held a finger up to stop him. He reached down and removed Altman's oxygen mask. Are you feeling up to speak? Asked Markov. I think so, Altman said. His voice sounded like it no longer belonged to him or belonged to someone that was him but much older. You removed Stevens, said Markov. This is Officer Cracks. Altman nodded. It's very simple, said Markov. I want you to tell me everything. He did, starting with the moment when Torquato had suddenly attacked and moving through to his hallucinations. Tell us more about these hallucinations, said Cracks. Does it matter? Asked Altman. They were just hallucinations. It does matter, said Stevens. Indeed, it matters a great deal. So Altman's too tired to argue or make up a lie, told them when he was done, and the three men withdrew to the far side of the room, started whispering again. Altman closed his eyes. He was on the verge of falling back asleep when they returned. For a moment, they just stared at him. Stevens started to say something, but Markov touched his arm and stopped him. I want you to tell Stevens everything from here on out, he said. Any dreams, hallucinations, anything at all out of the ordinary, you contact Stevens right away." "This is crazy," said Altman. "No," said Markov, "it isn't." And then they were gone, leaving Altman behind to brood. He felt more confused and apprehensive than ever. But a few minutes later, the door opened and a distraught Ada rushed in, and he had other things in his mind.